Rain fell hard that evening, soaking the dirt road where a young woman stood trembling, her hands tied with rough rope. Her family's wagon stood behind her, the faces of her brothers and father blank with shame, or perhaps relief. They had done it. They had sold her. No man wants a woman who can't give him sons, her mother had whispered before turning away. The girl bit her lip so hard she tasted blood, not daring to cry. She had cried too much already, and no one had cared. She was 23, named Alara, and once she had dreamed of teaching children or maybe owning a small garden. But her dreams had been crushed beneath gossip and cruelty. The doctor had said her womb was weak, and her fiancé had called off their wedding the very next day. In their small town, a barren woman was considered broken, cursed, useless. And so her family decided to sell her to a rancher far west, for a price just high enough to quiet their debts. The buyer arrived late that night, a tall man on horseback, his hat low, his face half hidden by rain. He dismounted with quiet grace, every movement careful, deliberate. "She the one?" he asked, voice low and rough. Her father nodded. "She won't cause you trouble. Just don't send her back." The man's eyes flickered toward Alara, and for a moment, something like pity crossed them. "I don't send people back," he said. Alara tried to look brave as the stranger untied her hands. His touch was gentle, unexpected. "Name's Samuel," he said, guiding her toward his horse. "You can ride or walk. Up to you." His tone held no command, no mockery, just quiet respect. Alara blinked through the rain, unsure how to respond. No one had given her a choice in months. "I'll ride," she whispered. Samuel nodded once, lifting her carefully onto the saddle before climbing up behind her. The ride to his ranch was long and silent. The storm softened into mist as dawn colored the horizon. She stole glances at him when she dared, his broad shoulders, the silver in his beard, the sadness that seemed carved into his eyes. "Why did you buy me?" she asked at last. He didn't answer right away. "Because everyone deserves a place," he finally said, his voice steady but tired. "Even if the world says otherwise." When they arrived, she saw a wide stretch of land framed by mountains and oak trees. Horses grazed near the fences, and a little white house stood in the distance, lonely but peaceful. "You live alone?" she asked quietly. Samuel nodded. "Used to have a wife. She passed last winter." He paused before adding, "We had no children." Something in his tone made her heart ache, a shared emptiness, unspoken and familiar. Inside the house, warmth wrapped around her like a forgotten memory. The scent of bread lingered, the fire hummed softly. Samuel showed her a small room with a wooden bed and quilt. "You can rest," he said. "You're not here to work unless you choose to." Alara blinked in disbelief. Bought, yet free to choose. It made no sense. "Why are you being kind to me?" she asked. He looked at her then, eyes meeting hers steadily. "Because I know what it feels like to be left behind." Days passed slowly, gently. Samuel spoke little, but his actions were quiet acts of care, leaving fresh bread by her door, fixing a broken chair she sat on, feeding the horses before dawn. Alara helped in small ways, sweeping floors, tending the garden, mending torn shirts. Neither spoke of the past, but their silence grew warm instead of cold. One evening, she found Samuel staring at a worn photo of his late wife. "She was beautiful," Alara said softly. He smiled faintly. "She was. But she was also sick for many years. We never had a child. Folks said I should have remarried long ago." He looked at Alara then, his voice steady. "But I don't need people's approval. I just need peace." His words lingered in the air, tender and raw. That night, Alara couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, watching fireflies dance over the grass. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Still, a voice inside whispered, this peace couldn't last. The world never let women like her stay happy for long. Somewhere, beyond the stillness, trouble was waiting. And she was right. Because 2 days later, a group of riders appeared at the ranch, men she recognized instantly. Her brothers, her father. And they weren't there to apologize. They were there to take her back, claiming Samuel hadn't paid enough. Samuel stepped forward, calm but firm. "She's not property," he said. But they laughed, spitting on the dirt. "Everything's property when money's short," her father growled. Alara froze, her heart pounding. Old fear clawed at her throat. She'd thought she'd escaped them, but here they were, ready to sell her again like a cow at market. Samuel moved closer, shielding her with his body. "She's under my roof," he said, his voice deepening like thunder. "And that means she's under my protection." The air crackled between them, rain clouds gathering once more. Alara's breath caught. For the first time, someone was standing for her, not because they wanted something, but because they cared. Yet she knew this wasn't over. The men who'd ruined her life weren't leaving without a fight. And Samuel, he was ready to give everything to stop them. The morning after the confrontation, Samuel stood on the porch with his rifle resting against the rail. The riders had left the night before, but not before vowing to return with the sheriff. Alara sat silently inside, trembling at every sound of the wind. "They won't stop," she whispered, her voice fragile. "They'll twist the truth, say you stole me." Samuel turned his head, calm but firm. "Then we tell the truth louder," he said. "You weren't stolen, you were saved." That day, Samuel rode into town, leaving Alara behind with a promise that he'd fix things. Hours stretched endlessly until the sound of hooves echoed again. She rushed to the window, her heart pounding, but it wasn't Samuel. It was the sheriff, flanked by her father and brothers. "Where's the rancher?" her father barked. "You're coming home, girl." Alara's hands shook, but she stepped forward. "Home," she said quietly. "That place was never home." Her father's face darkened. He moved toward her, but before he could speak, Samuel's voice thundered from behind. "Enough." Everyone turned as he rode up, dust swirling around his horse. He dismounted slowly, meeting the sheriff's gaze. "I've got papers," he said, handing him a folded document. "Signed by her family, sealed by the notary. She's mine, by law." The sheriff unfolded it, nodding. Her father's expression twisted in rage. "We didn't know you'd turn her against us." He spat. Samuel took a step forward. "You turned against her long before I came," he said evenly. "You sold her because she couldn't bear children. But you forgot, she still has a heart." His words struck like fire. Even the sheriff looked away, uncomfortable. Her father, humiliated, climbed back onto his horse. "You'll regret this," he muttered before galloping off, dust trailing behind him. When they were gone, Alara's knees gave out. Samuel caught her before she fell. For days afterward, silence filled the ranch, not the kind born of tension, but one of release. Alara helped Samuel fix the fences, bake bread, and tend to the animals. With each passing day, laughter returned, softly, shyly, like sunlight creeping through morning mist. She began to hum while she worked, and Samuel found himself listening from afar, feeling something he hadn't in years: hope. One evening, Samuel found her in the barn, brushing the mare's mane. "You've made this place feel alive again," he said quietly. She turned, her cheeks warming. "No, you did. You gave me something I never had, a home." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "You gave it life," he whispered. "And that's more than any child ever could." Tears filled her eyes, not of sadness, but gratitude. For once, she wasn't seen as broken, she was seen as whole. Months passed. The ranch flourished again. The garden bloomed under Alara's care, the horses grew strong, and Samuel's laughter returned to his lips. People in town began to talk, not in cruelty this time, but in curiosity. "The barren woman and the widowed rancher," they said. "They seem happier than most." Alara didn't care for the gossip anymore. She had found her peace in the quiet rhythm of love that asked for nothing, yet gave everything. One cold night, Samuel found her sitting by the fire, sewing a small blanket. "For who?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly. "For the children who'll come here someday. Or maybe for the ones who just need warmth." He knelt beside her, resting his weathered hand over hers. "You already give more warmth than anyone I've ever known." As winter turned to spring, their bond deepened beyond words. It wasn't built on promises or perfection, but on shared pain and patient kindness. One morning, Samuel surprised her with a simple silver band. "I don't want a family," he said softly, "I want us." Alara's breath caught as tears slipped down her cheeks. For the first time in her life, she was chosen, not for what she could give, but for who she was. They married beneath the old oak tree that stood at the heart of the ranch. Only a few neighbors came, bringing wildflowers and warm bread. When Samuel slipped the ring onto her finger, he whispered, "You gave me peace when I'd forgotten it existed." She smiled through her tears. "And you gave me life when mine was taken." Years later, travelers would pass the ranch and see a man and woman sitting side by side on the porch, their laughter rising with the wind. Children from nearby farms often ran up to them, calling her Miss Alara, and asking for stories. She'd smile, telling them tales of courage and kindness. They weren't her children by blood, but they were hers all the same. Samuel would sometimes look at her, eyes soft with awe. They said you were barren, he'd murmur. Alara would smile, brushing his hand. Maybe I was, of sorrow. He'd chuckle, leaning closer. Then I guess I found the cure. Their love became a quiet legend in the valley, not because it was grand, but because it healed. Two souls broken by loss, mended not by what they lacked, but by what they gave. And whenever storm clouds rolled in, Alara would stand by Samuel's side, whispering, I was sold once, but now, I belong. And Samuel would smile, pulling her close. You were never sold, he'd say softly. You were found.